Welcome to the Business Spotlight series. I am Everardo Resendiz, a certified executive and leadership coach here at Action Coach in Northwest Louisiana. Today, I have Matthew Lucci with RxTXT or RX Text Incorporated as my guest, and we will be talking about his business, the journey to business ownership, and challenges, best practices. We're going to share a peek into what it really is like to run and operate a business. And so, if this is your first time on the channel, please be sure to like and subscribe to get notifications when we drop conversations just like this one. And so, Matthew, welcome.
Everardo, thank you very much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for being here today. Would you share with us a little brief overview of your background and tell us a little bit about RX Text?
Yeah, absolutely. So my background is in mechanical engineering. I got my undergrad degree from SMU in Dallas in mechanical engineering and math. And then I went a little bit closer to you. I went out to UT Tyler for my master's in mechanical engineering. And I had a focus on medical device development while I was there. Shortly after, I lost a good friend of mine to a fentanyl overdose, and that led me to leave a job that I had as a systems engineer and start my first technology company that was focused on building medical devices for pain management so that patients don't get addicted to the pills that they're prescribed. Along the way, we were working on several software projects, including what was eventually spun off into the company that I'm the CEO of today, RX Text. It's a pretty simple platform for hospitals and clinics to be able to send automated reminders to patients to keep them on track during their recovery and during their treatment process so they know exactly what they need to know, exactly what they need to do, when they need to do it, so
Wow.
that they don't misuse their medication or forget to take medication. They're just getting text reminders saying, hey, today is day 5 of your 21-day recovery. Remember to take these pills 2 times today, that pill once today, spin around 3 times and spit out a window at 5 o'clock, or whatever the doctor prescribes for you that day. So that is really the impetus for what we're working on right now here at RX Text.
Wow. And so it comes from an experience, a personal experience. You get the idea. Now, is this only focused on substance abuse type medications? Is it dedicated only to that, or are you expanding that?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. So, our first company, which was on the medical device side, was focused on specifically pain medications that could be abused. Now, out of that, this technology that we've developed for RX Text, um, the doctors, the clinics, the hospitals, they can put pretty much whatever they want in these message plans. So we've got use in ophthalmology, so eye surgery, reminding patients to take their eye drops. We have pain management, reminding folks to take their pain medications a certain number of times in a given day, to call the doctor if you're feeling extra pain. Let's say it's day 5, and by that point, you should be feeling better based on the GI surgery that you had. If you're supposed to be feeling better, you could be receiving a message on day 5 or 6 or whenever that clinic wants to send you one for that particular surgery, that says, hey, if you're still in a lot of pain, give us a call. There might be a complication. Um, and a lot of this stuff is, things where if you walk into a hospital or clinic, you get your treatment done. On your way out the door, they hand you a stack of papers, at least this thick, that
Yeah.
says, take this at this time, take that at that time. And um, the vast majority of patients will misplace those, not follow those, have no idea where those went. Um, so what we aim to do is to take all of that information and just give it to you in a daily text message from your clinic saying, look, today is day X of your 21-day recovery, of your 30-day recovery, however long it is. And this is what you need to do today. This is the benchmark for where you need to be. And if there's any difference between what you're receiving here and what you thought, here's the number to call the clinic directly to ask follow-up questions. That
Wow.
way, you can stay on track during your recovery for any type of medication or honestly any type of treatment.
That's amazing, Matthew. That is great. Okay. Well, when you set the stage for the viewers, the listeners, what does the current ownership of the business look like? I mean, are you the sole founder, owner, head janitor, etc.? Or are there any outside investors or any partners in the business?
Yeah, it's a wonderful question. So, a lot of the individuals who were with us in the last company came over to help co-found this company. So I'm the CEO of this company and own a portion of the corporation, as does our chief financial officer, our chief medical officer, who's an orthopedic surgeon out at UC Davis. Um, our CTO is actually living in Malaysia right now, enjoying the good life over there. Um,
Nice.
and then we've got a couple of other smaller partners on the development side. Basically, everyone who was part of the founding team at any level got some equity in the company. After we had basically built the product, then we went out and got a handful of investors to seed the company and help us get out there into the market. So it's a combination of what you would consider to be the co-founders of the company, those with really significant amounts of equity, or our
Right.
C-suite. And then we have some of our developers and other partners along the way that were working in the business and got some equity as compensation. And then finally, you might call this a third tier, and that's our investors who stepped in to help us take the product that we had been developing and actually push it out onto the market.
I love it. Okay. So you really have created a village to sustain this business because it does take a village, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. What I didn't realize the first time I founded a company was you cannot do everything yourself. Um, Now, it's okay to be really good at one thing, or it's okay to be a generalist, but you cannot be really good at every single thing. Um, you know, I've taken online classes, night classes on certain things so that I could have a better understanding of what certain people within the business are doing. For example, I didn't know how to code in JavaScript or in Python uh, before starting this company. Um, I went out, I learned that I don't do the coding for our
Right.
organization, but I need to be able to communicate with our tech team, tell them this is what we need, and understand when they talk back to me and say, okay, it's going to take this amount of time, and here's the mechanism that we're going to be able to use to get this thing done. I need to be able to have those conversations. So I need to know at least a surface level about how to do that thing. Not that I'm going to be called upon to, you know, do a late night coding session and code for 24 hours straight, but that I need to be able to communicate with my team. Same thing on the finance side. I'm not an accounting major. Accounting was very boring for me when I did go out and take classes in that so that I could communicate with our finance team.
Right.
Um, but you step up and you do it so that you can have those conversations so that you know what's going on within your business. Uh, Not that anyone's going to call upon you to do that thing, but you
Right.
have to be able to work with those who do it. Other
You know what
people
I
do it
find?
better than you do.
You know what I find, Matthew? I call that knowing enough to be dangerous. Okay. But I find that a lot of CEOs tend to want to know exactly how to do every bit of it. Okay.
Mm,
And they get bogged down because since they have the capability to do these things, they normally step in and
mm,
don't do their job as CEOs because they're doing operational. So the approach you're taking is exactly where it needs to be. I love
yeah.
it. And so, what is your role in the business as CEO? How much of your time is it occupied in day to day things, and how much is in the on the business part? The strategy, the planning, etc.
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. So much of what I do as CEO is make the big decisions, um, including how we allocate resources. And resources include manpower and time. It also includes money. Um, I do work on things like the marketing strategy. All right, we're in these types of clinics. How do we spread across other types of clinics? How do we get into hospital? How do we dominate verticals and horizontals? What do we want to be doing as an organization? Where does our product fit into the grand scheme of all the other products and services available out there onto the market? I spend a lot of my time doing that, but in addition to that, I am a generalist in this organization, which means if there's a gap that needs to be filled, I don't want to be pulling somebody off of the tech team to go do sales. I don't want to be pulling someone off the sales team to, work in finance or code things up. So it's my job then to fill those gaps and plan for a long-term solution. So I've done everything from sales to the finance and projection side of things. Um, but my main job is making sure that the organization is heading in the direction that it should be and making those big decisions, which honestly, you don't get 100% of those decisions right, but you learn and you adapt and you get back out there and you do better the next time. That's
Sorry.
my job. That's my role as CEO in this organization. And if along the way I'm picking up the phone to call 100 different hospitals to try to get a partnership with them, um, that's part of that learning experience to try to move our organization in the right direction.
I love it. Okay, so let's move on to what makes your business so special. Like, who primarily does your business serve? If I were the audience, how will I know that I'm a good fit for your services?
Yeah. So, for anyone in the audience, if you work in a hospital or clinic that sees patients, and you typically see the same types of patients or the same ailments come through, a great example of this is an ophthalmology clinic. So that's eye surgery. There are probably about two, maybe three main types of eye surgery. You've got cataract surgery, you've got LASIK. Those are the two big ones. And the recovery from those surgeries is very similar. So, Everardo, if you walk in and you get one of your eyes done, and I walk in right after you and I get an eye done, we're probably walking out of there with the same thick stack of paper telling us what to do afterward. Um, as a result, because it's so standardized at that particular clinic, makes it so easy for a hospital or clinic, in this case, a clinic, to be able to just build out that message plan in our software. And then on our way out the door, type in our number and hit go. Um, it is a little less useful, but we still have people who do this at certain clinics, particularly in South Florida, where they'll have 1,000 different ailments that they treat, in which case they'll typically just build one or two message plans that just are pretty general and say, remember to take your medications today.
Right.
And we still see a lot of benefit from that, but we see the most benefit when you're able to tell a patient, this is exactly what you need to do. And it's a lot easier for them to do that when they're seeing patients walking out the door with the same recovery plan over and over and over again. So we see that a
So
lot in ophthalmology and GI.
is it all medical providers?
Yeah, pretty much any medical provider that has any sort of recovery afterward.
Yeah,
So
right. It's standardized plans
yeah,
for recovery. I get it. Very cool. And so, what makes your business unique? I mean, I mean, are you the only one in the marketplace with these, or why are they choosing you as opposed to other means of getting across this information to their patients?
yeah, that's another wonderful question. Right now, we are the only purpose-built post-operative platform. There's a lot of platforms that will remind you to get to your clinic. That'll remind you, hey, you have an appointment coming up in 3 days. You have an appointment coming up today. You know, there's a lot of platforms that do that. They're as of right now, there are no other platforms out there that, as soon as you walk out the door, will walk you through your recovery. And to do so through a simple text message that is set up on the clinic side rather than asking the patient to grab one of these, download an app, go through and build out their own recovery to get reminders. Honestly, a lot of patients don't have the ability to do that, don't have that technical know-how, or honestly, the patients to go through, download an app, build out everything yourself, um, and then keep up with a mobile application instead of just receiving a simple text every day.
Right,
Um,
right.
and we're the only ones on the market right now that do that. And that is why the hospitals and clinics that we work with absolutely love us.
Okay, well, that leads me to marketing. Okay, because I mean, since you have that uniqueness, all right, it then must be falling into that place where there's a lot of people that can benefit from, you know, knowing that you exist and that they can use your services. Um, but you surely have a marketing plan of sorts that pursues specific types of let's call it practices that fit more your already designed plans. So I'm always curious about how the businesses put together their marketing efforts, right? What can you tell me about
Yeah, absolutely. So, for a business like this, you have to realize that we are in the medical sector, one, which in general is highly regulated, has a very slow sales cycle. But two, you're also working um, in business to business sales. We're not selling directly to the patient, we're selling to the clinic. This is a service that the clinic will buy a subscription to and then be able to message a certain number of patients a month by using our subscription service. Now, when you put those two things together, the business to business sales, which generally there's a lot more that goes into that purchase decision versus business to consumer. And you put that in there with the fact that we're in the medical field, this is just ripe for disaster.
it?
It is very, very challenging to get out there and to roll a new product out in the medical field, especially if you're asking that hospital or clinic to bear the cost of it for them to make the purchase, rather than um, prescribing something like a pill or a device where they can bill their customer, they can bill their patient for that. What we found is it's a little more challenging because rather than saying, yes, we'll use this because someone else is paying for it, they have to say, yes, we'll use this and we will pay for it. So that's one of the challenges that came up when we were building out our marketing plan. And that's why we decided that we would need a much more personal approach. Um, and so we do have Salesforce on the ground, both in Texas and in Florida. We're focusing right now, particularly on North Texas, Houston, San Antonio, and South Florida. That's where we have boots on the ground that'll walk into the clinic and walk up to the front desk in many of these cases and say, hi, my name is Matthew. I'm with a company called RX Text. Here's what we do. Um, I know you're very, very busy right now, but could we get 15, 20, 30 minutes on your calendar sometime in the next couple of weeks? It's a lot of doing that, and then following up with email, uh, phone calls, and honestly, our best success rate is to follow up in person again and say, hey, you said you were going to call me back. Didn't happen. I was just in the neighborhood. Wink, wink, nod, nod. Um, you know, do you have 15 minutes now, or could we put something on, finally get something on the calendar? That has kind of been our strategy that works fairly well here in the medical industry because you're making those connections. And what we found is relationship selling is a whole lot more important in this sector than in some of the other sectors that I have been in because of the fact they in business to business have a much longer purchasing cycle, plus the medical field is a very long purchasing cycle as well. Um, so we're very relationship focused, very information focused, because we are dealing with a lot of doctors, and doctors love to have all the information and stats in the world.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. They studied very much for that. And so are they the ones making the decision? Is it the doctor or is it an administrator at the clinic?
Another great question. Uh, it really depends on the clinic and how that clinic is structured. What we find oftentimes is the doctors will own some of the smaller clinics, and depending on how involved that individual doctor wants to be with running the clinic, either they will make the ultimate decision, or all of those functions will be um, basically put on to some clinic administrator that they hire. So what we find is not only do we have to um, get buy-in from the doctors, um, who are oftentimes the owners of these clinics, we also have to get buy-in from the clinic administrator because they're the ones who are running the books. And they're the
Right.
ones who, we get to make a different argument to. So the doctors, we talk to them about the increase in medication adherence. We talk to them about improving the patient experience. We talk to them about the benefits to the patient. And then we turn around and we talk to the clinic administrator and we talk to them about the benefits, usually financial benefits to the clinic of reducing hospital readmissions, of increasing patient retention, of increasing patient referrals. And we have all the stats and the data to back it up. But we really have two different audiences that are
That's
often
right.
in the same room at the same time that we have to get buy-in from both, which can be challenging, especially for some of our newer sales reps to wrap their mind around the fact that you have to talk to this person in this way and then this person in that way, because they both care about what we have to say, but they care about different parts.
That's right. That's right. I mean, the solution in itself isn't really what's in question. It's the impact that it will have. And so you have to translate it in terms of they each will get the benefit from it. I get it. Wow, that's quite a challenge. And so I can probably spend half an hour with you just talking about the people and the training that you're doing and how to make sure that the follow through process is taken to an end. But I want to move the conversation into more of your journey and going back to okay, well, it is a business, right?
Mhm.
And like any other business, you will have up and downs, you will have challenges to overcome, and so you know, I wanted to ask as you look at your journey so far, right? Um, what has been the most memorable roadblock for you that you were forced to overcome?
Yeah, I think that the most memorable roadblock is just how slow the purchasing cycle is. When we first went out and we raised money for RX Text to get out onto the market, and that's all we raised for because from our perspective as founders and co-founders, we decided we're going to build this on our own dime. Once it's ready, then we'll raise so that we can have some money to push it out onto the market. Um, we had anticipated a much faster selling cycle. We had a handful of clinics who were already interested in what we were doing because we had been communicating with them as we were developing and getting feedback. And so we thought, all right, as soon as we get out here, we're going to sell, 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 and things are really going to take off. But the biggest roadblock for us was just realizing one, it's not one person's buy-in at these clinics that you have to get. You really have to get the whole village on their side aboard. And there's usually in a clinic at least two people who can veto the decision.
That's
One of
right.
those we were talking a minute ago was the clinic administrator, and the other one, as we were talking a minute ago, was the doctor or whoever owns the clinic can also veto that decision. So, in addition to all of that, hospitals and clinics are used to taking their sweet time making deals. They're used to taking their sweet time to gather all the information out there, even if they're never going to find anything more than what you just gave them. Because we walk in there with studies, we walk in there with the statistics, we walk in there with pricing. We can negotiate pricing with them and so forth. Um, they're not going to get any more information from people who are not on our sales staff. We're very well trained. Anyone who walks into there either knows the answer or can get the answer to you within 24 hours after talking with a tech team. It is, but that's not the way that clinics are used to doing business. And that was probably the biggest stumbling block that we had to overcome in this journey.
So, what kind of impact did that have on you as a business owner?
I think the biggest impact that it had on me was that I had to take a step back and recalibrate not only our financial projections, but also for me personally and for my family, kind of what we were expecting in our personal lives over the next year. Because if you're planning for, your business to do reasonably well in, 3 months,
In a specific
then
time frame, yeah.
yeah, in a specific time frame, you start to tell your wife one thing and okay, we'll go on vacation around this time and then having to kind of take a step back and walk over to your wife with your tail between your legs and say, look, um, our new updated projections say that we'll take a vacation in 6 months instead of three. Um, yeah, and we'll go
Having to
visit
make all
the.
those adjustments. And the reality, Matthew, is that we in business, we operate on a lot of assumptions because we don't really have the time and the bandwidth
Mhm,
to count for every variable that comes along. But what I found in my years of doing this is that assumptions are your number one enemy. And so almost any project that we will undertake will take much longer than we expect.
mhm,
It will cost more money than we think it will. But again, that's all based on assumptions that we make, and we need to be able to validate those. So that's a very, very interesting experience you had with that. And so now your forecasting is a little bit more conservative, I am assuming.
mhm. Yeah, absolutely. At least in the next year, it's a lot more conservative. And, um, you know, what we try to do, considering the fact that, um, you know, any decision that we make, any assumption that we make, we're going to have to go validate it somehow. We basically decided, like, look, there's a whole bunch of features that we could build out, but it'll take us 10 years to build out everything that we want to build out with our current team. And they're incredibly talented. They just don't have the time to build everything we want to build. Um, so our current attitude is, look, if there's a feature that one of our paying customers wants, we'll build that. Um, but we're not going to build something out because someone says they might use it if we have. You
Right.
know,
Good.
if we get a signed contract that someone will, one of our larger clinics will um, get a subscription if we include some feature, then by all means we'll go do that. But one of the things we learned is don't build something out based on what one person said or one clinic said that they would use or that they would get a subscription because that's not guaranteed. Get the ink on paper first, and you can even make it part of the contract that we'll build it out. But you always want to make sure that someone is willing to pay for it because you'll find a whole lot more people who are willing to use it for free than you will people who are willing to actually put the
Absolutely.
money down.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so let's fast forward to what comes next. Okay. Where do you see the business in the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, in the next 3 to 5 years, we have an expansion plan. Um, while we are selling across the entire US, we'll be adding sales reps um, throughout the rest of Florida, Oklahoma, Louisiana, uh, Georgia, New York, basically all the way up the East Coast. We have a handful where we want to put boots on the ground. Um, And so I really believe that in about 3 to 5 years, we'll have a pretty saturated market on the East Coast, um, as well as some organic sales kind of on the West Coast where people find us because of what they hear from other clinicians in other parts of the country. That's really kind of our goal and our aim for this, and I think we're going to hit that in about 3 to 5 years.
All right. And so what has been your approach to goal setting? Like how many goals do you set at a time? How do you document them? What's what's the time frame for those?
Yeah, absolutely. So uh, I like to use the SMART methodology: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. And time bound doesn't necessarily mean that they're all 1 month goals. But there are certain things that we want to achieve in 1 month. There are certain things that we want to achieve in, 3 years. And so I'll sit down with my team once a week and we'll go over one, where we're at, what we're doing right now, whether we're on track, whether we're not. And I do have to recognize that however much time my tech team says a project is going to take, add 50% to that, and that's a reasonable assumption because things always take longer than you think they will. So you might as well, at least on your side, be honest with yourself about how achievable that goal is in the next month. Probably not. Month and a half. Now we're talking.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I we look at specific dates on the horizon. Um, for example, major investor meetings. What do we want to achieve before then? What do we want to take back to our investors to reaffirm that they've made a good investment in us? Um, and then we come back and we put these goals together and we say, look, we want to hit this number of clinics in the next, looking at it, our next investor meetings in about 2 weeks. So around the time this comes out, we'll have an investor meeting. In between the recording and when this comes out, um, our sales teams will all have hit another 100 clinics in their geographic areas, in addition to going and speaking with a certain number of hospitals and hospital systems in their area. And that varies depending on where they are in the country, because there are more hospitals in certain areas than others. But we'll set goals like that so that we can walk in and we can show just how much work we're putting into it, how hard we're working, because to some extent, sales is a numbers game.
Okay.
You could knock on 100 doors and not get a single sale. Um, but if you knock on 1,000 doors, you might get 30 sales. Then you look at it, okay, we have a 3% hit rate. So you're just getting closer and closer to the true number. It's the law of averages. Get out there, knock
It
on as
is,
many
and,
doors
and,
as you
and
can.
as you do more of it, you get better at it. So maybe you don't get to do 3%. Maybe you do get, like you said, you get 5%, you get 6%. There's always improvement that comes along with the experience and effort. I love it. And so really the focus is sales, getting your
Yeah.
product out there as much as you can, as fast as you can for the foreseeable future.
Yes. That is the most succinct way of putting it. The focus is sales.
All right. So we have certainly covered a lot of ground in this conversation. I mean, Matthew, honestly, we probably could have another one of these and just talk about some other areas that I'm really curious about. But for those people who watch, and I highly encourage you to save these and come back, watch a few times. There's a lot of great nuggets here, things that you can use when you're developing your own. And so, as we begin to wrap up, I have a few rapid fire questions. Matthew, you ready? So
Yes.
quick top of head answers for each, right? So first, what is the key to success for you?
Key to success for me is perseverance, knowing why you are doing what you're doing, and um, being able to continue to motivate yourself when you have bad days, because there will be bad days.
What is your one piece of advice for other business owners?
My biggest piece of advice is to write down why you're doing what you're doing so that anytime you have a bad day, you go back and you look at that and say, this is my why. And whether that's your family, whether that's, you don't want other people to grow up in a world without a parent because one of them passed away to an opioid overdose, whatever your why is, write that down, come back to it, because not every day are you going to be making those $1 million deals. Most of those days, you're going to be struggling, wondering why you can't make the $1 million deal. And you need to come back to that why, because you will be asking yourself on those hard days, why am I doing this?
Love it. Okay, so what is one book you're reading right now or have read and you recommend to other people?
So, one of the books that I'm reading right now, I actually brought it with me. It's called The Challenger Sale. The focus is sales. And so, in order to be able to better connect with my sales team, I picked up this book, The Challenger Sale by Matthew Dixon and Brett Adamson, and really walks through the different types of salespeople and what makes them successful in different environments. And I would definitely recommend it.
Very good. And so if you had to choose only one area that your business that you could immediately improve, what would that be?
Sales. Once you already have a product built out, um, they say that sales cures all. So any other issues going on in the company, if you're selling and money's coming in, makes it a whole lot easier to fix anything else.
Love it. And so before we get into the final question of the day, how can others learn more about you or your company? How can they get in touch with you guys?
Yeah, so you can either email me at mlucci@rxtxt.co, check us out online and look at the product for yourself at rxtxt.co, or follow us on LinkedIn.
Love it. And so last question of the day, Matthew, what is most inspiring for you today?
The most inspiring thing for me today is probably my wife. Um, One of the most resilient people that I know, and every morning she pushes me to be better than I was the day before. And so I'm very thankful for her, and um, she inspires me like every time I see her.
You're gonna get good points for that. You know that, right? When
I'm
this
always
comes
trying.
I love it. Hey, Matthew, thank you so much for being here with us today. Thank you for sharing your journey, and you never know who you're inspiring by participating in these things. So the same goes to our viewers. They need to share these with other people, and maybe impact the life of somebody else. And so, thank you for being around here. Make it a great day. Until next time.